Hey everyone, it's Mike and welcome to lesson number 2 on the Order Flows Delta trading course, how to read Delta. And by the end of this lesson, you should understand the different ways to view Delta on a chart. And so a brief disclaimer before I begin, this presentation is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to buy or sell a futures contract or make any other type of investment decision. Futures trading contains substantial risk and is not for every investor. An investor could potentially lose all or more than the initial investment. Risk capital is money that could be lost without jeopardizing one's financial security or lifestyle. Only risk capital should be used for trading, and only those with sufficient risk capital should consider trading. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. So, the reason why Delta is a great tool for traders is because it can be analyzed alone or with other bars. And I could take it even a step further, and I could say that Delta can be analyzed as a tool by itself or with other forms of technical analysis. But getting back to what I mean where it can be analyzed alone or with other bars is there's sometimes you see something in a single bar's delta that's revealing, and there are also other times where you can analyze delta over a few bars to see something revealing. And there are different types of delta displays available for traders to use. And this is important because not a lot of traders realize that they have these choices. And this lesson will open your eyes to the different ways you can look at order flow delta. Now, it's important to know the other ways to look at delta because it's going to give you an edge over other traders who disregard delta completely or maybe just look at the final delta number. And there's other forms of delta analysis that can be done when you take the other information that's available with delta. Now, the most common form of delta analysis is done using an order flow volume footprint chart with delta displayed along the bottom of the chart. And this is how it looks, right? You have your normal bar chart with your bid-ask data in there, and you have the delta, max delta, min delta, cumulative delta divided by volume, and total volume. In the next lesson, I'm going to discuss all these delta, max delta, min delta, cumulative delta, etc. Pieces of information. But this is how it looks on a normal delta chart. Normal bar chart rather. I don't want to say normal delta chart, but it's a normal bid-ask footprint chart. Okay, and you can see it just displayed along the bottom. Now, sometimes people say, you know what, I want to have the delta above or below the bar. Well, I prefer to keep it along the bottom because I like to keep it neat, right? If you start adding a lot of stuff on your chart, you start running out of real estate space and it gets confusing. And again, like I said in the previous lesson, delta oftentimes doesn't necessarily reveal something. It's like soccer, right? Football, English football, where for 90 minutes there's just nothing going on. People are passing the ball back and forth. It's just that 1 minute, that 30 seconds of something happening where the guy gets the ball, escapes a couple defenders, puts the ball in the back of the net. And it's the same with delta. Oftentimes delta doesn't have anything revealing. It's just your normal trading going on, but then something shows itself in those those few bars that things just make perfect sense, and then you could put the ball in the back of the net, so to speak, by taking a good trade. Now, again, there's different information. There's delta, max delta, min delta, cumulative delta divided by volume, total volume. I don't use all of those. I stick to delta, max delta, min delta, and volume. Your software should allow you to adjust what you want to see. And again, I don't like to look at information I'm not going to use. That's why I stick with these 4 pieces of information. Now, I understand for some of you guys, you may be overwhelmed by looking at numbers. You think, oh my God, look at all these numbers. It's just too much. I can't be bothered to learn all this stuff. Well, honestly, if you're trading for a living, you owe it to yourself to learn everything you can about the market. And delta is an important piece of information. But there are other ways you could look at delta, and you can have it in candlestick form below your chart. You don't want to have it in candlestick form up on the same chart because you're going to get confused with your actual chart. And it's been said that the mind processes images at a faster speed than number or text. So for a lot of people, sometimes it's easier to see delta in the form of candlesticks because most traders are already familiar with candlestick formations. And this is how it would look if it appears on the bottom. This is the delta candles. A delta candle always starts at 0. Anytime a new bar is formed, delta is 0. Then it has a high and a low, either a positive delta or negative delta, and then it closes. Okay, so like you see a green delta, it tells it's positive. If it's a red candlestick, it's negative delta. and you can see it. I said 0 is is your point where you open. So if it goes positive early in the bar, you have this wick here you can see on the red candle. Then it goes negative. We have a wick below the 0 line. That's how negative the delta was. And delta closed negative. That's why you have a red body there. And same thing for a green candle, right? Green starts at 0. All candles start at 0. And maybe it goes a little bit negative. That's this little wick down here. Then it is positive, gets stronger, 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 closes on its high. That's why there's no wick above this green candle here. But it's green, telling you it's positive delta. So remember, green for positive delta, red for negative delta. And like I said, if you don't want to be bothered with these numbers, especially if you don't have space on your screen, you could remove those numbers by just looking at a delta candle, right? Look at that chart. This is much cleaner than say this chart with all these extra numbers on there. And again, with the delta candle, sometimes you could see patterns. You could see delta getting weaker as you're making new lows. That's what this red line is on this chart. Delta is getting weaker, making these new lows, and then boom, it's strong positive on this low. So you went from minus 4,500, minus 1,900, minus 1,200 to positive 359.59. But you can see it was strong negative candle, big down red candle, then a smaller red candle, and an even smaller red candle, then a positive green candle. So you could see, you could almost draw this line going up like that, a trend line, where it's turning positive. I'd be looking for this market to rally. Now, say you don't want to even use a volume footprint chart, the bid-ask data. You can put delta candles, if you have good software, on a normal bar chart. So you don't even have to look at the volume, the data for the bid-ask or volume footprint chart, because you can just look at your normal bar chart with the delta candles below, so you understand what's happening with the delta based on it below. Like again, this is important information. Say you're trying to analyze this bar chart, you're not sure if it's going to come off. Well, you're at your high and you're seeing negative deltas coming in. It's safe to say, well, I think market's a bit heavy. It's slanted. You're at our highs and we're seeing aggressive sellers come in. We'll look for the market to sell off, which it does. It's very telling, when you're looking at highs or lows, what's happening in the market. Now, years ago, I created my order flows delta candles cheat sheet, and these are the most common candlestick formations that I look for in the delta. There's bearish ones, there's bullish ones. I've actually, after I created this years ago, I wrote it out with I put it on a piece of poster board and I stuck it to my wall. It was on my wall till a couple months ago when I moved house. That was the first time I took it down from the time I created it. And so, this is something that I pay attention to, and it's easy to see once you memorize these simple candlestick formations. I'm not a big candlestick trader in the sense of price candles, because there's several hundred different candlestick formations, and when I was trading candlesticks, I would stick with a handful of them. And same thing with delta candles, because they all tell me something in what's happening in the delta. Now, there are other ways to use delta on a chart, and another way to view delta is an actual footprint chart with the delta displayed for each price level in a bar. And this chart's going to allow you to see if there's more aggressive buying or selling at a price in a bar. Now, for users of my software, okay, I don't know how it works with other software, but with my software, you can change it from your normal bid-ask data, right, your normal volume footprint chart, to the delta. And you go into the ladder content, you change it to delta. And how it's going to look is it looks like this. Okay, so you can see there's positive numbers on the right hand side and negative numbers on the left hand side. Now you still have your bar, your green candle, your red candle for your normal price action or price activity in the bar. But if it's a positive number on the right hand side, it tells you at that price level there was positive delta. If it's a negative number on the left hand side, it tells you at that price level there is negative delta. So how do you use that? Well, it's going to tell you, I'm going to show you in a different lesson 4, when I go over some of the trading setups, how to use this information. And it's actually quite revealing when you're looking at delta footprints in a bar, because think of it like this. If you're a tracker, if you've ever hunted, you know, you in the snow, you'd look at the footprints left in the snow by the animals that you're trying to chase down, and it's the same with the delta footprint, because you can see that, okay, like in this bar, like this bar, you know, this big down candle here with the ratio of 0.3607, you know, early in the bar there was some buying, right? There's some positive delta, but then the bar is just mostly negative delta, all on the sell side as the market is selling off, right? Just like here, right? You sold off, and then buying came right back, and you know, this is what you'd normally expect in bars, right? In green candles, you'd expect, you know, aggressive buying on the way up, and you know, on red bars you'd expect aggressive selling on the way down. You know, and so you can see how it is. You know, mixed markets, you tend to get mixed bars. You know, I'll say mixed markets rather. Markets are going sideways. You know, it tends to be mixed up, but you know, on bars that are on a trend that's moving, you know, in one direction, you tend to see the aggressive buying on the way up, right, with a little bit of aggressive selling towards the bottom of the bars. Just as, you know, a market that's selling off, you see a little bit of early aggressive buying, but then selling taking over, selling taking over, selling taking over. And then on the way up, aggressive buying, aggressive buying, aggressive buying, aggressive buying. So another way to analyze delta is the diagonal delta footprint chart, which displays the delta in a bid-ask format. So instead of looking at volume in a bid-ask format, you're looking at the delta in a bid-ask format. And personally, I find delta diagonal footprints are useful in filtering out imbalances. And again, understand your charting software, you go to the ladder content, right? And my normal bid-ask volume footprint chart is set to bid-ask. If I want to change it to diagonal delta, I just change it to diagonal delta. And this is how it's going to look. It looks like, you can see it here, again, negative delta on the left-hand side, positive delta on the right-hand side. And you can see here where you got some imbalances. You know, as markets go up, you got buying imbalances. As the markets go down, you tend to have the selling imbalances. And this is how it looks on a normal volume footprint chart versus this here. So it's actually comparing it diagonally. Now, honestly, I don't really use it that much. I know maybe one person, honestly, that has admitted to me that they use it. Now, again, you know, not everybody uses all the tools that are available out there in trading. It's, you know, I don't want to say you got to find something that no one else is using and use it for yourself, but rather, you know, if there's a way to look at the market with the information that makes sense to you, use it. You know, people always ask me, why do I use a range-based chart and not a time-based chart? Well, I prefer a range-based chart because I'm seeing how price moves on a chart based on price movement rather than time movement. You know, rather than, oh, it's 105, I got to form a new bar. I want to see how bars are formed as price is moving. It's the same way with delta. You know, you can see you got a stacked imbalance here, and you can see the deltas are all stacked. You know, to me, that's very important information. If you're starting to see, you know, the multiple imbalances in a bar as well, that's also important information. You know, this is how it looks on a normal bar chart. This is how it looks on a delta diagonal chart. So the $1 million question is going to be, well, which format should I use to watch delta? Again, it's a personal choice. Trading is like that. You got to find what works for you. Again, what works for me may not work for you. How I have my chart set up may not be how you want to have your chart set up. Maybe you want to have it a little different. Maybe you don't like a white background. I like white backgrounds. I know some people can't stand white backgrounds. And, you know, some people, maybe they don't want to have all this volume, you know, the delta, the max delta, the min delta. They don't want to have all that information down there. They want to look at candlesticks. It really depends on you. You got to find what makes analyzing the market easier for you. You know, over the years, I've gone from analyzing the delta on the bottom with the data to delta candlesticks, back to the delta on the bottom, to delta footprints, to a combination of on the bottom and delta footprints. So it really depends on you and what you want to use in your trading. You know, don't put information on your chart that you're not going to use. Stick to information on your chart that you're going to use. You know, there's no point in having a diagonal delta footprint if you're not going to make any trading decisions based on it, or having a delta footprint if you're not going to use it, right? So it really comes down to what you're using in your trading. That's what you should put on your chart. If you're just going to be looking at the delta numbers, okay, I suggest keeping delta, max delta, min delta, and the volume on there. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Part of being successful in trading is finding what works for you. You control your destiny. You're the one who has to make the decisions when it comes to trading. I'm not going to be sitting next to you saying buying or selling. No, you got to be making those decisions. And what I'm doing is I'm explaining to you your different options so you can make the best possible choice on what to use for your trading to be consistently profitable, right? You want to be consistent in your trading. And the way you become consistent is you find a chart that you're comfortable with using and you stick with it. You don't keep changing your chart settings every other day. No, you find something that you use for it and you go with it. That's what you use to base your trading decisions on. So this is the end of lesson 2. In lesson 3, I'm going to discuss the different delta numbers and what they mean and how to interpret them. So I'll see you all on the next lesson. Bye bye.